The Notebook of Doom. Rumble of the Coaster Ghost by Troy Cummings. Chapter 1. The New Girl. Alexander Bopp was an expert at two things: fighting monsters and passing super secret notes in class. And today, he was passing a note about monster fighting.
R+N. Any signs of fruitcake lately?
Alexander glanced at his teacher, Dr. Tallow. She was writing on the board. He passed the note back to his two best friends, Rip and Nikki. They sat in the back row. Dr. Tallow turned around just as the note reached Nikki. Nikki sank into her hoodie. "Nikki, dearie," she said with an extra-wide smile, "bring me the note, please."
Yikes,
thought Alexander. I'm glad I wrote fruitcake instead of monsters. "It would be a shame for you to miss out on our surprise field trip tomorrow, Nikki," Dr. Tallow continued. "Please, bring me that note."
"Yeah, Nikki,"
said Rip, sitting upright.
"Be a good student like me."
Nikki shot Rip a look. Then she handed the note to Dr. Tallow. "All right, class," said Dr. Tallow, pocketing the note. "Now, about that surprise. Tomorrow, we'll be taking a field trip to an amusement park." The students cheered.
"Woo-hoo-hoo!"
Rip howled.
"An amusement park? On a school day?"
Knock, knock. A serious-looking woman in a serious-looking suit was at the door. It was the school principal, Miss Vanderpants. "Dr. Tallow, I'm here with your new student," she said. "She'll start school tomorrow." A shy-looking girl stepped into the room. Dottie Rogers. Bunny backpack, bunny shirt, bunny socks, bunny shoes. Alexander looked back at Rip and Nikki, who were grinning. They had all met Dottie at summer camp. "Welcome to Sturmont Elementary, Dottie," said Dr. Tallow. "We're glad to have you." Alexander remembered his very first day at school. His teacher had called him Salamander, which had become his nickname. "Hi, Dottie," said Alexander. Dottie gave Alexander a little wave. "Bring." "Okay, dearies," said Dr. Tallow. "Give me your permission slips on the way out." Alexander handed in his slip. Alexander Bopp has my permission to go on the field trip. Helmet size, medium, extra medium if you have it. Allergies, none. Notes: Al loves to read and has a huge imagination. Did you know he was born on Leap Day? How cool! Dr. Bopp, Al's dad. Chapter 2. Soup's On. Alexander, Rip, and Nikki took the long way home. They followed a path through the woods that led to an old caboose with the letters SSMP on the side. Super Secret Monster Patrol. Club members: Alexander, the trusty leader; Nikki, brave and smart; Rip, loud and strong, but mostly loud. The three friends stepped inside SSMP headquarters. A map of Sturmont hung on one wall near a shelf full of random objects. "I'm glad we stopped here," said Alexander. He loaded his backpack with monster fighting gear. Sharp pencil, yo-yo, flashlight, potato masher, blindfold, paperweight, salt shaker, rubber gloves.
"Don't forget the notebook,"
said Rip.
"Already in here,"
said Alexander.
"I never go anywhere without it."
He pulled up a beat-up notebook from inside the backpack. SSMP, Super Secret Monster Patrol. Creepy skull. Full of monster drawings. "Now we'll be ready to fight all kinds of monsters," Alexander said. Nikki coughed. "You mean bad monsters, right?" she said. "Of course," said Alexander. Nicky was actually a good monster called a jampire. Jampires, like seeing in the dark, eating anything red and juicy. Dislike, sunlight.
"You know,"
said Rip, putting his feet on the table,
"Dr. Tallow is an awesome teacher. Her classroom pet zone is super fun, and now she's letting us ride roller coasters."
"Yeah, whatever," Nicky said. "I think she's kind of—" Nicky was interrupted by a voice shouting across the woods.
"Al! Dinner time!"
"Gotta go," said Alexander, scooping up his backpack. "See you tomorrow." Alexander ran through the woods to his house. His dad set 2 steaming bowls of tomato soup on the table. "Dig in, Al," he said. "I'll grab some drinks." While his dad was in the kitchen, Alexander snuck a peek in the notebook. He was so focused on reading it that he missed his mouth with the spoon. Splarp! Soup splattered everywhere. "I have to be more careful," he thought. "This notebook is the SSMP's secret weapon." Alexander wiped the pages with his napkin. Bumblebeaver, busy monster. Habitat, old hollow logs. Timber! Bumblebeavers build dams that are 100 feet tall. Diet, twigs dipped in honey. Behavior, these creatures buzz around the forest, smelling flowers and knocking down trees. Warning, even if you dodge the bumblebeaver's stinger, you could still get slapped by its tail. Chapter 3. The Squeals on the Bus. The next morning, Alexander's dad dropped Alexander off in the school parking lot. The students were lining up near a bus. Rip and Nicky were already there, talking to Dottie. "Hey, Salamander," said Nicky. "We were just telling Dottie about our new school building." "It's so fancy," said Dottie. "You're lucky, Dottie," said Nicky. "We used to go to school in an old hospital." "You're double lucky," Alexander added. "You get a field trip on your first day." Dottie smiled.
"You're triple lucky,"
said Rip.
"that you're allowed to board the bus with that goofy-looking backpack. Ow!"
Nicky had pinched Rip's arm. "Ignore him, Dottie," she said. "We're glad you're here. Oh, look!" She pointed to a tall, white-haired man carrying a big cooler. "There's Mr. Horsley."
"Horsley's a huge weenie," said Rip. "He's afraid of everything."
"Is he the bus driver?" asked Dottie. "Yep," said Alexander. "He's also the school's secretary, nurse, gym teacher, and janitor." Alexander didn't mention that Mr. Horsley was a former member of the SSMP, or that he seemed to be the only grown-up who could see monsters.
"Morning, children,"
said Mr. Horsley. He whistled as he boarded the bus. "Whoa," said Nicky. "Mr. Horsley looks so calm today."
"And happy,"
said Alexander. Mr. Horsley stuck his head out the door.
"All aboard,"
he said.
"The park opens in 10 minutes."
The students climbed onto the bus. Dr. Tallow sat in the second row, digging through her purse. Rip plopped down in the very first seat.
"Let's sit up front with Dr. Tallow, guys," he said.
"Well, good morning, Rip," said Dr. Tallow. "And hello, Alexander and Dottie." She rubbed some lotion on her hands. "My skin gets so dry on warm days. Oh, hello, Nicky." Alexander, Rip, and Dottie smiled back. Nicky gave a silent nod. Mr. Horsley started the engine.
"We're off!"
he yelled as he drove out of the parking lot. Rip leaned forward.
"So, does this amusement park have lots of cool rides?"
he shouted to Mr. Horsley.
"You bet," said Mr. Horsley. "They have a carousel, a haunted house, a roller coaster, you name it."
"Yahoo!" Rip yelled. For the rest of the ride, he bounced in a seat. At last, the bus came to a stop.
"Here we are," Mr. Horsley said. "Psst."
The door slid open. Rip shoved past Alexander and flew down the steps. Blomp! He crashed right into a 10-foot-tall orange creature with a pointy head, white stripes, and huge bulging eyes. Chapter 4. Safetyland.
"Monster!" shouted Rip.
Attack! He punched the creature in what he guessed was its gut.
"Oof!"
said the big orange creature.
"Rip, stop!"
cried Mr. Horsley, pulling Rip back. Everyone else climbed off the bus.
Rip," said Alexander, "that's no monster."
Rip blinked.
"It's not?"
Mr. Horsley turned to the students.
"Meet Joan, the safety cone. She's the mascot of this amusement park."
"Fiddly-ho, boys and girls," said the googly-eyed cone. "Welcome to Safetyland!" Rip blinked again.
"Wait, did you say safety?"
"Yup," said Joan.
"No wonder Mr. Horsley couldn't wait to come here," Alexander whispered to Rip and Nicky. "It's the safest place on Earth."
The grinning cone wheeled out a cart full of safety gear. "Everyone, put on your helmets!" Dr. Tallow helped pass them out. Alexander clipped on a helmet. Then he walked over to a big map. Nicky and Rip joined him.
"Check it out,"
he said. "Welcome to Safetyland, the safest place on Earth."
"Hold on a sec," said Rip. "Slow teacups? A giant cradle? Is everything in this park safe?"
"You bet," said Joan, skipping up behind them. "It's safety first, and second, and third. And oops!" The top of the mascot costume fell off. The woman inside looked tired and sweaty. "Crud," she said. "The straps on this thing keep slipping. It's like they've been cut or something." She waved to Mr. Horsley. "Sir, could you give me a hand?"
"Of course,"
said Mr. Horsley, running over. In addition to his helmet, he wore elbow pads, knee pads, and a safety vest. Rip turned back to the map.
"Wait," he said. "How about this roller coaster? That must be a real ride."
"Huh?" said the woman, picking up her head. "Oh, sorry. The coaster is out of order. We had some track damage." Rip's eyes twitched. His fists shook. His face turned red.
"Safetyland is the worst!" he screeched.
Alexander frowned.
"We're at an amusement park," he thought. "But I can tell this will not be an amusing day."
Chapter 5. Down for the Count. "Fiddly-ho! Follow me, kids!" Joan the safety cone led Alexander's class on a parade through the park. Alexander noticed that everything in Safetyland was soft. The handrails were soft, the pretzels were soft, the sidewalks were soft. Soft music even played in the background. At one point, Mr. Horsley sang along.
"Gophers have holes, goldfish have bowls, a hamburger hides in a bun. Life can be swell if you stay in your shell, 'cause safety is better than fun."
"Here we are," said Joan. "The world's safest haunted house." The parade stopped at a cozy cottage. There were no spider webs, no gravestones, and no old boarded-up windows.
"I'll lead the way,"
yelled Mr. Horsley, adjusting his elbow pads. The door opened without making a creak, and Alexander's class walked inside. The room was well lit with thick carpeting, padded walls, and clearly marked emergency exits. Alexander walked between Rip and Nicky. "Not exactly spooky, is it?" he said.
"Look!"
said Mr. Horsley, clapping.
"Magic!"
He pointed to a purple curtain covered with strange symbols. "Ta-da!" An oddly dressed man stepped through the curtain. He wore a wizard's hat, a tuxedo, and a shiny purple cape. His left arm was in a huge sling. Flump! The curtain fell on the man's head. "Oops, sorry," he said. "Cheap curtain." He tossed the curtain aside. Alexander noticed a zigzag cut along one edge. "Ahem," said the man. "I am the wonderful, mysterious, amazing Count Chad." He took a little bow. Half a deck of cards fell out of his sleeve. The students giggled. "No laughing," snapped Count Chad. "I'm not a jokey magician, I'm a real magician." He wiped his brow, but his handkerchief was tied to 4 more handkerchiefs. They all became twisted in his sling. "Now," Count Chad said, untangling himself, "watch me pull a rabbit from my hat." "Oh," said Dottie, smiling. The magician reached into his hat and pulled out a half-eaten carrot. He said, "maybe later." "Oh," said Dottie, frowning. "Instead, I will predict the future." He wiggled his eyebrows as he pulled a crystal ball from his cape. The ball began to glow. Count Chad held the ball close to Alexander as he spoke. "I see a boy who has faced terrible, difficult, monstrous challenges." Alexander looked into the ball. Cloudy shapes danced in the glass. "But this boy should beware," continued Count Chad, "of the dreadful, horrible, unspeakable Coaster Ghost." Flash! The image in the crystal ball came into focus. Everyone gasped. A skull face with bloodshot eyes stared back at Alexander. Chapter 6. Tea for Two. Alexander reached out to touch the crystal ball. The spooky eyes followed his fingers. "Hands off!" said Count Chad. He jerked his arm away. Alexander noticed an electric cord running from the bottom of the crystal ball. He looked at Nicky and raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" asked Nicky, pointing. Nothing," said Count Chad. He took a step back and tripped over the cord. Whomp! He fell to the floor, and the crystal ball fell with him. The ball rolled to a stop on the carpet, completely dark. "An electric crystal ball?" said Nicky. "Totally lame," said Rip. Alexander could see that the ball was fake, but he could not stop thinking about those creepy eyes. "Clumsy me," said Count Chad, getting to his feet. "Now you know how I ended up with this." He flapped his sling like a chicken wing. Dr. Tallow shook her head. "That's enough magic for one day," she said. "Everyone, pair up with a park buddy on the way out." Joan the safety cone waved the students toward the exit. Dr. Tallow walked right over to Rip. "Dearie," she said, "I'd like you to be my park buddy for the day." "Sure," said Rip. "Let's try that 100-foot bungee." "I love bungee jumps," said Dr. Tallow. "Really, anything stretchy." "I'm going to the petting zoo," said Mr. Horsley. "Who's with me?" Me, said Dottie. "Maybe there are bunnies." Alexander gave Nicky a smile. "Come on, park buddy," he said. "Let's go ride something." "Sure, Salamander," she said. Have fun, everyone, yelled Dr. Tallow. We'll meet at Pillow Mountain for lunch. Alexander and Nikki wandered around the park. At least there are no lines, said Alexander. They ended up at the teacup ride. Alexander and Nikki plopped down in a yellow teacup. Alexander grabbed the little chain to latch the teacup closed. Hey, look, he said. This chain's been snipped. I bet that's the most dangerous thing in Safetyland, Nikki said, rolling her eyes. Vrrr! The teacup started to spin, slowly. Wait, said Alexander. The straps on Joan's costume and Count Chad's curtain had also been cut. He opened the notebook. I remember reading about a scissor monster in here. Cutterfly. Scissor-headed creature with paper wings. Habitat. Recycling bins. Diet. Coupons, paper dolls, homemade valentines. Fun fact. Baby cutterflies look like safety scissors. Scree! Rusty cutterflies squeak when they flutter. Warning. If a cutterfly tries to dive bomb you, throw a rock at it. Rock beats scissors. Nikki grabbed the notebook and snapped it shut. No way, Salamander, she said. A few snip things don't equal a monster. Their teacups circled about, slow and steady. You know, Salamander, I don't think Dr. Tallow likes me, said Nikki. Really? Said Alexander. Maybe she was upset about the note passing, but... Hey, weenies! Shouted Rip. Clunk. The teacup came to a stop. Rip ran up to them, with Dr. Tallow lagging behind. It turns out that ride was a 100-inch bungee. Basically one big rubber band. Or maybe it used to be a 100-foot bungee, said Alexander, thinking out loud. And it got snipped by a monster. Huh? Said Rip. No, everything here is just super safe. Maybe not everything, thought Alexander. He checked the sky for fluttering cutterflies, but the only thing fluttering was his stomach. Chapter 7. Flipped Lid. At lunchtime, the students gathered near Pillow Mountain. Dr. Tallow counted heads and recounted heads. She frowned. She said. Everyone's here but Mr. Horsley and Dottie. Maybe Count Chad made them disappear, said Rip in a fake spooky voice. Dr. Tallow chuckled. Well, I'm sure they'll be here soon. Let's start eating. She turned to Nikki. Sweetie, could you pass out the lunches? They're in the cooler. Okay, said Nikki. She walked over to pick up the cooler. Kerploff! The lid snapped in half. Dr. Tallow scowled. What did you do? I don't know, Nikki said. The lid was just sliced down the middle. Alexander's eyes widened. All right, Nikki, said Dr. Tallow. Have a seat. Nikki grumbled as she sat between Rip and Alexander. Dr. Tallow passed out the lunches. There were many menus stapled to the bags. Menu: blue cheese, blueberries, blue corn chips, blue Jell-O with bits of bluefin tuna, blue raspberry juice box. Rip chomped on a corn chip. I don't have super strength, said Nikki, wadding up her paper bag. That cooler was already broken. Just like Joan's costume, added Alexander. And Count Chad's curtain. And the teacup chain. I don't know about that, said Rip. I think you're starting to imagine monsters because this snoozement park is boring. It's too bad the roller coaster is busted, said Nikki. Alexander sipped his juice. Wait a minute, he said. Maybe a ghost broke the coaster. Didn't the crystal ball warn us about the coaster ghost? Ha! said Nicky. You mean the fake crystal ball? Good point, said Alexander. But still, I saw the spooky eyes in the ball.
Oh, geez, Salamander, Rip snorted. First monsters, now ghosts. You're a bigger weenie than Horsley today.
Alexander stuck out his blue tongue at Rip, but he kept thinking about those eyes. They seemed so real, almost like I've seen them before. Chapter 8. Hide and Go Eep. After lunch, Alexander's classmates lined up for the barely-go-round. Should we give it a go? Alexander asked Rip and Nicky.
Forget that baby ride, said Rip. Let's play ring toss.
Alexander and Nicky followed Rip to a game booth. Joan the safety cone stood behind the counter. Rip paid $1 for a floppy ring. He tossed a ring. Plink! It landed on a peg. Fiddly-ho! Way to go, said Joan.
So what's my prize?
Asked Rip. You get to keep the ring, said Joan. She tossed the ring back to Rip. Rip frowned.
I paid a whole $1 for this?
Alexander and Nicky laughed as Rip slipped the ring on his wrist. Excuse me. Dr. Talos stepped in front of Nicky. She leaned down to talk to Alexander and Rip. You two are such responsible students. Could you do me a favor?
Sure,
said Rip. Alexander saw Nicky grit her teeth. Dr. Tallow lowered her voice. Dottie and Mr. Horsley are still not back yet. Could you run a loop around the park to look for them? Nicky's my park buddy, said Alexander. Can she come with us? Dr. Tallow paused. Of course, dearie, she said. Okay, guys, let's go, said Alexander. We'll hit the petting zoo first. The friends ran past rides, game booths, and snack carts. They finally arrived at the petting zoo, a fake ranch filled with giant stuffed animals. I should have known, said Nicky. Real animals would be too dangerous for Safetyland. Rip tried to pet a cow, but it tipped over.
Sheesh,
he said. He unsnapped his helmet and strapped it to the cow's head.
You need this more than I do. Eep!
Shouted a giant stuffed llama. Actually, it wasn't a giant stuffed llama. It was a tall person crouched down behind a llama. Mr. Horsley, said Nicky. Where have you been?
I've been hiding,
said Mr. Horsley. His knee pads made a clack-clack-clack sound as they knocked together.
Count Chad was right. The coaster ghost is real.
Where's Dottie? Asked Rip.
I think the ghost got her, cried Mr. Horsley. We were near the roller coaster when we heard a terrible noise. Then I ran.
You left Dottie all alone? Asked Alexander.
Grum!
A thunderous rumble rang out across the park. Mr. Horsley jumped into the pouch of a giant kangaroo. Mr. Horsley, said Alexander, head back to Pillow Mountain. We'll find Dottie. Mr. Horsley hopped the fence and ran. Alexander, Rip, and Nicky ran the other way, toward the roller coaster. Chapter 9. Single Dip.
They called that a roller coaster?
Yelled Rip, shaking his head. There was a sign lying on the ground. Nicky picked it up. Look, guys, she said. This rope has been snipped. See, Rip, said Alexander. Somebody has been cutting stuff all over the park.
Okay, fine, Salamander, said Rip.
But so what?
And why cut that rope? The ride is out of order with or without the sign.
Just then, an empty roller coaster car rolled into view and stopped. Click, 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 click. This ride doesn't look out of order, said Nikki. The three friends glanced at the control booth, but there was nobody in there. They stepped up to the coaster.
Look! What's that in the front seat?
Said Rip. Something fuzzy, said Nikki. And rabbity.
Dottie's backpack,
cried Alexander. How did it get here? Asked Nikki.
Beats me, said Rip, scratching his head. But there's no way a ghost put it here.
Not a ghost, said Alexander.
That's it. Those eyes in the crystal ball. They weren't ghost eyes. They belonged to a whirly-wisp.
He opened the notebook. Whirly-wisp. Looks like a ghost, but it's not. There's no such thing as ghosts. Skullhead. Glowing red eyes. Raggedy body. Habitat. Dark caves. Grum. A whirly-wisp's growl sounds like a rumbling train. Diet. Jellied kid brains, served on crackers. Behavior. The whirly-wisp turns anything it touches to jelly. Warning. This monster will stop at nothing to eat your brains, but if you can draw a circle around it, the whirly-wisp will fade away. Those eyes do look similar, said Nikki.
And we do keep hearing a rumbling sound,
added Alexander.
So let's wallop this whirly-wisp,
said Rip,
before it turns Dottie into jelly.
Brum! A rumble blasted from the tunnel.
Come on, the coaster is about to move,
said Alexander. He hopped into the car. Rip and Nikki got into the seat behind him. Psht! The coaster carried them down a hill, over a bump and into the tunnel, right toward the terrible sound. Chapter 10. Tunnel Vision. Rip held up his arms, ready to say, "Whee!" as a roller coaster rolled into the tunnel. But he didn't say whee. He didn't even say woo. He just made a sound like a balloon losing air.
That was some dip, Rip said. I've ridden shopping carts faster than this.
Alexander looked around. The tunnel walls were painted to look like a cave, with fake rubbery rocks all around. Suddenly, clack! The coaster came to a stop.
What happened?
asked Nikki. Shuff, shuff. There was a sound like footsteps ahead.
Did you hear that?
Alexander whispered. He craned his neck to see around the bend. A second track branched off to the left, but the footsteps seemed to be coming from another direction. Clunk! The lights went out.
Whoa!
said Rip. The three friends leaned in close to one another. Shuff, shuff, shuff. The footsteps were coming closer.
Nikki,
whispered Alexander.
What can you see with your night vision?
Someone's coming this way, whispered Nikki. She gasped, then shouted,
Dottie! Hey!
Dottie called back.
Who turned out the lights?
Alexander unzipped his backpack.
Hang on, Dottie,
he shouted.
I've got a flashlight.
He flicked it on. Dottie ran over to the coaster.
What are you doing down here?
asked Rip.
Well, Mr. Horsley ran off, said Dottie. So I turned to head back for lunch, but then I saw Bunny by this ride. I tossed my backpack into a parked coaster car and chased the bunny down here, but I lost it after 99 hops.
See, Salamander, Rip said.
There was never a ghost or a monster.
Alexander turned back to Dottie.
Did you see glowing red?
Brum! A deep rumble shook the tunnel. Alexander saw something move just to his left. He swept his flashlight along the wall and stopped when the light hit a creepy-looking rock. Actually, it wasn't a rock. It was a floating body made of dark, twisted rags. A grinning skull bobbled on top of the body. The creature drifted toward the coaster car. Its red, glowing eyes lit up the tunnel. "The Whirly-Wisp," said Alexander. Chapter 11. Ready to Rumble. "Arr!" Rip, Nicky, and Alexander screamed as they leaped from the coaster. They landed near Dottie. The creature opened its jaws. "Brum!" Its howl shook the tunnel. "The ghost," said Dottie. "It's real." "It's not a ghost," said Nicky. "It's a Whirly-Wisp." "A whirly what?" asked Dottie. She swallowed. "That's the thing from Count Chad's crystal ball." The creature floated toward Alexander, its head bobbing. "Don't be scared, Dottie," said Rip. "We're professionals." Alexander took a step away from his friends. The creature lurched at him. "Watch out, Salamander," said Rip. "Don't let it touch you." Brum! The skull head began to spin around. "What's happening?" asked Dottie. Alexander pulled a pencil from his backpack. "If the Whirly-Wisp tags me, I'll turn to jelly. But if I'm fast enough..." With low, quick steps, he ran a loop around the creature. He dragged his pencil along the ground, drawing a circle. "That should do it," said Nicky. "So long, Whirly-Wisp." The creature twisted and jerked. "Didn't the notebook say the monster was supposed to disappear as soon as a circle was drawn?" yelled Rip. The creature flopped in place, still making a rumbling sound. "Wait a second," said Alexander. He reached up to grab the edge of the creature's gown. "Salamander, no!" Nicky yelled. Chapter 12. All Tied Up. Foof! Alexander yanked the sheet off the creature. "Aha!" he said. "This Whirly-Wisp was a fake." "We've been tricked," said Rip. "But why?" asked Nicky. "And who would do something like this?" added Dottie. Alexander turned off the loudspeaker. The tunnel became quiet. Shuff, shuff. Alexander heard new footsteps. Alexander, Rip, Nicky, and Dottie all turned to see an oddly dressed man carrying a lantern. The man had one arm in a huge sling. "Count Chad!" said Rip. "Thank goodness you're here," cried Dottie, smiling. "How did you find us?" asked Nicky. Count Chad tugged at his beard. "A good magician never reveals his tricks." "Can you get us out of here?" asked Dottie. Said Count Chad, stroking his beard. "I think I'd rather show you my latest trick." "Huh?" said Rip. Fwish! A lasso of colorful scarves shot from the magician's sleeve, binding Alexander's arms to his sides. Oof! Alexander fell onto the tracks. "Presto!" said Count Chad. "You've tumbled right into my trap." The magician smiled at Rip, Nicky, and Dottie. The friends took a few steps back. "You three," he said, "will be the audience for my next magic trick." He raised his sling above his head. Crack! Count Chad's huge sling burst open, revealing a spiky crab claw. "You're the one who's been cutting stuff up," said Nicky wide-eyed. "You got it," said the crab creature. Snip, snip, snip. Count Chad's claw sliced off his cape. Then he yanked off his fake beard and tossed it aside. "Ta-da!" he said. "I'm the wonderful, mysterious, amazing Crabra-Cadabra!" Alexander squirmed. The monster leaned down to pat his head. "Alexander Bop, I knew you'd follow my fake monster clues." Dottie gave Alexander a strange look. "This guy knows you?" she said.
I don't know,
said Alexander. The crab creature laughed.
Every monster knows the super secret monster patrol, he said. We've been trying to stop the SSMP since forever. And finally, hocus pocus, I've trapped the leader.
Rip took a baby step toward Alexander. Click-a-click. The creature pointed his claw at Alexander.
You! The boy tied up on the tracks. You'll help me with the old saw the boy in half trick.
What?
No!
cried Nicky.
I could use my claw as the saw, the monster continued. But cutting you in half with this roller coaster will be way more fun.
The Crabracadabra scuttled over to a panel near the service tunnel.
It's showtime, he said.
He pressed go. Rip rushed over to Alexander and began yanking on the scarves.
Rip, hurry!
yelled Alexander. He could feel the rumble of the cold metal track as the coaster rolled closer. Chapter 13. Dead End. Alexander flopped around like a trout, but he couldn't get off the tracks. His arms were bound tight and the coaster car was inching toward him.
Run for it!
Alexander shouted to his friends.
Not without you,
said Nicky.
Rip, Dottie, let's lift him into the coaster. This ought to be good,
said the Crabracadabra, smiling. He propped himself up on a fake boulder to watch. With a grunt, Rip, Nicky, and Dottie hoisted Alexander up to the edge of the moving car and, oof, dumped him in. Then they jumped in too.
So long, pincher brain,
said Rip.
You'll never catch us now.
The car coasted ahead at 1 mile per hour.
Bah!
The monster laughed.
Thanks for saving me,
said Alexander.
Don't thank us yet, said Nicky. We're not exactly making a speedy getaway.
The Crabracadabra scuttled past the car over to the tunnel exit. Then he opened his claw above a piece of track. Clink! He clamped down, snipping the metal like cardboard.
Dead end,
said the monster. The car inched forward.
The big boss was totally right,
the monster continued.
She knew you'd stick together to save Alexander instead of running to safety.
Wait, said Rip. You have a boss?
Sure,
said Crabracadabra.
The boss monster. She's in charge, and I'll show her I'm better than the Balloon Goons, the P-Rex, all those dumb monsters.
Better at what? asked Nicky.
Better at crushing the SSMP once and for all, said the monster. Finally, Sturmont will belong to us. Not a chance,
shouted Alexander. He wriggled around, trying to see where their car was headed. It was coasting straight for the broken tracks, where the giant crab stood grinning. His sharp claws sparkled in the lantern light. Chapter 14. On the Wrong Track.
Guys, untie me now!
shouted Alexander. His arms were numb from the tight scarves. Nicky and Dottie reached over and began fiddling with the knots.
It's tricky,
cried Nicky.
The scarves are all twisted.
Hurry up, yelled Rip,
before Count Crabcake snips us all in half.
Alexander watched the tunnel wall roll by. He could hear the click-a-click of the crab monster's claw growing louder as they coasted toward the broken end of the track. Then Alexander noticed the service tunnel switch.
Rip!
he shouted.
Ring toss!
Huh? said Rip. Alexander nodded to the switch.
Oh!
Rip pulled the ring off his arm and flung it at the switch. Ding! The switch flipped.
Ka-thunk!
The track shifted. The coaster veered left. Snip! The monster's massive claw lopped off the top of Rip's hair. Rip ran a shaky hand across the top of his head. "Why'd I give my helmet to a cow?" he said. The coaster rolled into the service tunnel. "You're not getting away that easy," said the Crabacadabra. Slam! The monster leaped onto the back of the car. Suddenly, the track angled down, straight down. Alexander's stomach flipped. Everyone screamed as the coaster raced downward at rocket speed. "Now this is a roller coaster!" Rip shouted. The monster was holding on tight. The coaster roared through the twisting underground passage and thundered around a corner. "Look! Daylight!" Dottie shouted. "We're headed outside!" Whoosh! The coaster blasted out of the tunnel and onto a set of trolley tracks. The coaster sped along. Rides, game booths, and snack stands flew past in a colorful blur. Urgh! With a grunt, the Crabacadabra leaped over the coaster car. He landed on the track and tucked himself into his shell. The coaster barreled toward him. "Hang on!" yelled Alexander. Clang! The coaster rammed into the monster's hard shell. The shell stayed put, but the coaster launched high into the sky. Chapter 15. Secret Weapon. Ah! The heavy coaster car flew through the air, over the rockabye cradle ride, plump, and bounced on a giant white cushion. Alexander opened his eyes. His arms were still tied, but he was alive. "Hey, soft landing," he said. "I never thought I'd say this," Rip said, "but I'm glad we're at safety land." Nicky looked around. "But where did the monster go?" "I'm out of here," said Dottie. She ran and hid behind a cotton candy cart. Rip pulled Alexander to his feet. "Let's finally get you untied, Salamander, before—" Scritches, scritches, scritch. The crab creature skittered into view. "All right, kids. Chop, chop," he said. "Run!" said Nicky. The SSMP ran to the nearest ride, the teacups. Rip and Nicky dove into a pink teacup, and Alexander flopped into a yellow one. They all ducked down to hide. The Crabacadabra stepped onto the ride. His massive shell brushed against the ride's controls. The teacups began to spin around slowly. "Oh, goody!" the monster shouted. "A game!" He swung his claw down hard, shattering a purple teacup. "Nobody there," said the Crabacadabra. "I'll try again." The monster smashed another teacup. There were just 2 left. Kerclash! Alexander peeked over the brim of his cup. The monster held his claw high above Rip and Nicky's cup. Alexander popped up and shouted, "Stop! Don't hurt them! Take me, but leave my friends alone!" "How about we make a deal?" asked the monster. "Hand over your secret weapon, and I'll let you all go." "Secret weapon?" said Alexander. The monster rolled his beady eyes. "You know, the notebook. The boss monster wants me to bring it to her. Then the SSMP will no longer have the upper claw. I mean, hand." "Huh? The monsters know about the notebook?" thought Alexander. "Hand it over, now!" yelled the crab. Alexander saw Rip and Nicky peeking out of their teacup. They shook their heads no. The Crabacadabra raised his claw higher. Alexander wobbled out of his cup. "You win." The monster lowered his claw. "Good move, kid," he said. "Now I'll cut your arms free so you can hand over the notebook." Snip. The claw shredded the scarves. Alexander shook the numbness from his arms. Then he opened his backpack, pulled out the notebook, and handed it to the monster. Chapter 16. Get Crackin'.
The notebook is finally mine,
said the monster.
I'm as good a monster as I am a magician.
Oh, please, Nikki shouted from her teacup.
You're a terrible magician.
The Crabacadabra's face became stop sign red.
Oh, yeah?
He said. He tucked the notebook under his arm. Then he reached into his hat and pulled out a squirmy bunny.
Watch me make this rabbit disappear,
said the monster. He held the bunny up. Then he opened his giant claw.
No!
shouted Dottie, popping up from her hiding spot.
Don't you dare hurt that bunny!
She ran over to the teacup controls and slid the lever from safe to fun. The teacups began to spin. The notebook flew out from under the monster's arm. Alexander caught it before falling on a pile of teacup parts. Rip and Nikki ducked down in their cup as the teacup spun faster and faster.
Yikes!
cried the monster. He dropped the bunny and quickly tucked himself into his shell. The cups rattled on their saucers. Whoop! The crab shell spun like a top. It spun off the ride and down the sidewalk. Dottie smiled as she turned off the ride. Alexander, Rip, and Nikki stumbled to the sidewalk, dizzy but happy.
That was awesome!
mumbled Rip before falling over. The crab was still spinning in his shell like a confused breakdancer. He whirled across the sidewalk, through a flower bed, and right into the path of the rockabye cradle.
Good job, Dottie,
said Alexander.
There's just one thing left to do.
He dashed over to the cradle's controls and hit go.
Crunch!
The huge cradle rocked forward, shattering the crab's hard shell. The pale, flabby monster shivered without his shell.
No!
he groaned.
That shell was my armor, my home!
Whoa, said Rip.
He's so pale.
And so squishy, said Nikki.
And so not at all fluffy,
said Dottie. Sploosh! The creature flopped into a sewer drain. A moment later, Dr. Tallow ran into view, stepping over pieces of shattered teacups and crab shell.
Alexander,
she said, what happened?
We found Dottie,
said Alexander. Oh, very good, said Dr. Tallow. She took Dottie's hand. Come along, Dottie. Let's get you some lunch. Dottie looked back and waved to Alexander, Rip, and Nikki. Alexander held a finger to his lips. Shh! Dottie gave Alexander a thumbs up. Alexander, Rip, and Nikki stayed behind. There's no way the Crabacadabra will find a shell that big again, said Rip.
Yeah, we cracked this monster,
said Nikki.
But what about the boss monster he mentioned? Do you think there's one big monster in charge?
Alexander frowned. I don't know, he said. But if monsters are after the notebook, we'll need to be more careful than ever. Speaking of careful, said Rip, why don't we go ride the barely-go-round? Without your helmet? asked Nikki. Alexander laughed. We'll get it back from the cow after I update the notebook. Crabacadabra. Crab monster with a few tricks up its sleeve. Habitat. Safety land. Diet. Cotton candy. Behavior. Pretends to be a magician. Fake glasses. Fake nose. Fake beard. Fake crystal ball. Fake sling. Real bunny. Crack. This monster is harmless without its shell. Warning. The Crabber-Cadabra's claw can snip through anything: ropes, chains, and roller coaster tracks. Troy Cummings has no tail, no wings, no fangs, no claws, and only one head. As a kid, he believed that monsters might really exist. Today, he's sure of it. Behavior. This creature is scared to death of roller coasters, but rides them anyway. Habitat. About a 20-minute bus ride from Safetyland. Diet. Crab cake sandwiches with lots of lemon. Evidence. Few people believe that Troy Cummings is real. The only proof we have is that he supposedly wrote and illustrated The Incy Wincy Spider Freaks Out and Giddy Up Daddy. Warning: